Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. We have three special guests in the studio with us today. Wishbone Ash is here. We have Andy Powell, founding member.
Sir,
great to meet you. Muddy Manninen, nice to meet you on guitar. And we have Bob Skeat on bass. Nice to have you guys here. Thanks for coming in.
It's fantastic to be here. Loving it.
It's your first time to Sweetwater, correct?
Yeah. Bought a lot of gear here from here, but never seen it.
Nice. I saw you were having lunch out in the diner and getting ready. Yeah, it's a different than many other retail locations.
It's an experience.
Yeah, good. Well, we're glad to have you here. You're playing a gig here in town.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, C2Gs.
Don't look at me.
Right, right. C2G, absolutely.
C2G,
a venue here in town that puts on a lot of great concerts and things.
Yeah, we're on a tour at the moment. We started out in Denver. We're up 5,000 road miles so far. I just checked that today, but we're heading all the way out to the East Coast, and then we're going up and down the Eastern Seaboard. Then we go over to UK for a month there also.
Nice. Then you guys are continuing through pretty much the winter. Look like you're booked up pretty solid.
Yeah, we have a bit of time off in December. Then we go through to Poland and Germany and Austria.
Belgium,
Switzerland,
Holland. Yeah.
Covering the globe. Yeah. What impressed me was the number of nights in a row that you guys play.
Brutal.
There's not a lot of nights off in there. How do you stay focused and how do you stay healthy through all those nights? Cake
is the trick.
And would that be angel food or devil's?
Angel for me. Plenty of cake.
Yeah.
No, we're organised. We've been doing it for a while.
We just pace ourselves.
We're very organised.
Right.
We just
no wild partying or anything like that anymore.
No, not so much of that. But occasionally.
Right. Well, you got to have some fun.
Yeah, you have to. It's all about fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Andy, dating back to when the band was founded, of course, one of the hallmarks of Wishbone Ash has been the twin guitar approach, the harmonies and some of those things. And I read a very interesting comment you made in an interview where you said that as opposed to thinking so much harmonizing melodies, you were thinking more like horn parts when you were working with the dual guitars. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the first songs that we ever wrote, I remember writing it in this rat-infested squat in London. It was a song called Blind Eye. Mm-hmm. And I'd been playing in bands with horns as a teenager. We call them soul bands in England, but you probably call them R&B bands. But the soul thing was very big in the mid-'60s in the UK. So I was very used to sitting down with the horn players, sax, trumpet, and working out these lines that we were trying to replicate what was going on in Motown and the Stax productions, in our little English way. And the British blues boom had happened in the mid-'60s. Everything we'd done with guitar by about '69. We had, Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, and Clapton. I mean, so where else can you go? Well, let's maybe try and push it a little bit further. And the prog was just around the corner. Mm-hmm. Let's just try sort of using the guitars in a little bit more intelligent way, like a horn section. So we wrote that song, Blind Eye, and that was the stamp. As soon as we heard that, we were like, oh, wow, that sounds really cool. Let's continue with it. And it's become our hallmark, our stamp. And it's served us extremely well. And there's always a little bit of twin lead guitar in everything we do.
It's interesting how you develop that, 'cause on a song like Throw Down the Sword, for example. There's a whole long intro there where you're going through a number of variations on the harmony guitars along with the bass. In some cases unison, some cases more counterpoint kind of things. Were you thinking more in a classical mindset there, or what was your approach to those type of things?
Well, the two, I'd say the influence, the roots of the band are classical. Mm-hmm. Martin Turner, the original bass player, was, a kid who was in church choirs. And if you're a kid growing up in England, you're always getting a little bit of church music. That's the roots. That's what you hear. And, folk, English folk, and American blues. So you put that all in a pot, stir it up, and that's our sound. But the song you're referring to, Throw Down the Sword, the twin lead guitars that you hear at the end of that song, which is people love that, a complete accident. I'd done 2 takes of the solo, and our album sleeve designer, Storm Thorgerson from the company Hypnosis, that designed so many incredible album sleeves in the 60s and 70s.
Sure.
He walked in the studio at that point and we said, "Hey, Storm, which take do you like?" And so the engineer accidentally threw both faders up, and both solos came out, and they were weaving in. He said, "Oh, you got to use both of them." That's like, that's happening, you know.
Right.
And that's how it ended up being that way, and it was a fantastic choice.
Right, absolutely.
Well, I thank him for that. Thank you, Storm. Thank you.
Right,
Lucky
yeah,
accident. sort of,
Lucky
yeah.
accident, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a hallmark for the band and such a different approach than, say, like the Allman Brothers with the more blues-based kind of a thing, and some of the other bands that later were doing that, the metal bands and
That's
things.
right, yeah.
But obviously, you guys were right there founding that whole twin guitar movement.
Yeah, we
So
don't
cool.
claim to have discovered it, but we've certainly done more than any other band with it, and we've probably influenced quite a lot of bands too. You know, I mean, bands like Thin Lizzy openly admit that, and you know, concede that, you know, we were their influence when they came off the boat from Ireland. They landed and came to the first show they came to was a Wishbone Ash show at the Lyceum Ballroom, and Phil Lynott went, "That's the sound that we want," to the guys, and Scott Gorham told me that story, and I was laughing, but
Right.
yeah, and Iron Maiden have obviously used the twin and triple guitars a lot.
Right. So for Bob and Muddy, when you guys come into a band that has a long heritage like that, obviously you have to replicate those parts that are written for the songs. Do you feel compelled to match every note that's on the albums, or are you put your own stamp on it?
We do some of it. I mean,
Yeah.
the most important parts that people, you know, remember and are familiar
You
with.
pick the parts that you think as maybe signature parts or important parts or melodic parts that have been created for that, and then after that you've got to put your own stamp on it.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it's not
It's
relevant.
not- yeah.
So.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
And the thing with this band now, because we've been together for many years, it's the most consistent lineup, is that we've also got a heritage of recordings ourselves.
sure.
Exactly.
So that cements things a lot, you know. I mean, if it was just playing tribute to ourselves every night, I think it would be kind of redundant.
Right.
But, you know, we have our own culture, we have our own... we were talking about in the dining room, actually, the amount of work that this particular incarnation of the band has done is prodigious, actually.
Yeah, a lot of new recordings and new music come out. It's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Well,
Keep the
we're
band-
chucking product out, as they used to call it,
Right.
all the time. I mean, if we don't have a studio album out, we're putting out,
DVD.
there you go.
Right.
Ruthless plug.
Paris.
Right,
Very good
right.
timing. we just did that in Paris last year, and you know, and then if we're not doing that, like, you know, we got the book. You know, if people want to read about, you know, the story of this band, you know, I put that book out last year. So,
Right.
you know, stuff like, there's always something happening within our community. And we were one of the first bands to get on the
Then we
internet.
sell live recordings of the gigs, like we had this boxed set of the, you know, gigs
Yeah, you've
that
got
have been done.
four concerts, correct, in the box set?
Well, yeah, but there's been many more as well. Yeah, we just
Well, we're going to
constantly.
record
We
one
did
on
the
this tour,
Roadworks.
actually. We're recording a show at Sellersville, aren't we?
Yeah, in
For-
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be released next year as well.
So you know, we want to just continually feed the
didn't know
beast,
about
our
that.
community. You know, they just want to hear what's going on all the time, new ideas. If it's not, I mean, we've been pretty consistent with the studio albums, though, right? I mean, what have we done?
Last one came out at the end of
Couple of years ago.
2014.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
been
But,
18
so
months.
yeah, it's a vibrant band. It's a band that's actually producing.
So what is the current approach to songwriting and putting all those parts together?
Aha! Well, there's no current approach. It's you know,
varies, yeah.
I
According
mean,
to the-
there's many ways that you can initiate a song. You know, we might say, if we have time, which we don't on this tour, but if we have the luxury of, say, jamming something, coming up with some riffs at a sound check, that could be the basis of a song. Or Muddy or I or Bob might write down a word, a title even, or a couplet, or even an entire verse, and that could spawn a musical idea, or a chord sequence, right? I mean, there's so many different ways.
A million ways to write a song.
Yeah, I mean, often, if you're at home, you tend to be sitting down with an acoustic guitar. So we'll write maybe the skeleton of a song on acoustic guitar at home, and then bring it to the band, and we get Bob
And
and
everybody gets their parts down.
Joe to put their energy into the ideas, and that is a band actually producing band music. You know, you can be the best songwriter in the world, but if you haven't got a great band to kind of give it legs, it's just a nice little song, you know.
Right.
Yeah. That's
at that
what
point,
being
it's
in a
all-
band is all about.
Sure, and at that point, it's about capturing the performance and getting that that kind of documented for the fans.
Yeah.
And speaking of fans, I was really interested to see that you guys are doing a lot of, I would say, almost outreach. You're active on the social media, but also the AshCon event. Tell us about that. What's that about?
We do that every year in the UK, and it's just people come from all over the world for it.
It's a fan
And
convention.
it's a fan convention, yeah. And it's tradition. We do it every year, and we have other guests coming. There's some ex-members come and play as well, and people bring their wares to sell on the market stall things, and trade stories, and it's a community thing, yeah. It's really
Did
great.
we have
Some
last-
of the fans have their own like tribute bands. They
that's
do a
right.
set in the afternoon.
There are many Wishbone Ash tribute bands
Uh-huh.
around the world.
That's got to be kind of crazy to watch the tribute band play and then...
It's wild, because it's not actually not about us. It's the fans' event, and they produce, they promote it. And we've had them on cruise ships in the Caribbean. We've had them in Germany. We've had them over here as well. We call them Ash Fests if they happen here. But who did we have? Was it last year we had Russ Ballard from Argentina?
probably
He sat in.
Maybe
No,
probably,
it was 2
Rust,
years,
yeah.
3
I think this year we're going to have Don
We think we're going to have Don Airy.
Airy from Deep
Yeah,
Purple.
He doesn't know yet, but
He doesn't know that. But we're gonna
Someone should let him know.
I think that's my job.
we always try and get a guest guy come along, and yeah, it's just a great day. It's for the fans, yeah.
Right.
So that's one thing that we do, and of course we work all the social media, the Facebooks and the Instagrams and all that, and you won't see too much about Wishbone Ash in magazines. Maybe Vintage Guitar magazine, who've been very nice to us because we are vintage.
Getting there.
Get it there. But but working the social media and the website, that's where the action is.
Right. Staying in touch with your fans. Is
And coming to places like this.
Right.
Sweetwater.
Absolutely. So, Muddy, it's interesting to see you play slide guitar with a prog-ish type band. I mean, obviously there's a strong classical and prog influence there, and you think of slide as being more a blues kind of a thing. And it's interesting the way you integrate that in. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that most of the songs I play slide guitar on are quite bluesy, to be honest. Yeah, so it's not a big problem in that sense. But I mean, it's basically just a guitar which you play in a different kind of style. You just slide on the string. So basically, you can do a lot of stuff within that framework.
But you're playing lap steel as well, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I haven't done that for a while now. But,
That's true.
Yeah, I switch between the lap steel and the regular slide.
Right.
Well, the good thing about the slide is that we do have the bluesier side to the prog. I mean, we might play a blues song, like, for example, in the last album, Deep Blues. And we were only commenting about this the other day. We would never just let it be a 12-bar blues. It has to have a bridge in the middle. It has to go somewhere, And so, it might start out in that format, that blues format, but we're going to take it somewhere because we just have to,
Right.
Yeah, but Wishbone Ash has always been a mixture of different styles, like a bit of blues, folk, jazz, and then
Eclectic.
rock and roll. So,
Right.
It's true.
In some of the live videos, I've even seen some little Irish jig kind of things there, and some reggae type little breaks and things. And
Leave it alone.
you guys throw a lot of different influences
Yeah,
into the music.
we've done things like with accordion and brought in a fiddle player, and we've got some friends who are Irish musicians when they've come and participated, and it's almost become like a collective at that point. I actually love that. I'd love to delve more into that. But it's we're pretty good musicians. We can turn our talents to different genres, and that's what it keeps it interesting for us.
Right.
It does.
Right. The thing that stands out for me, though, is that many prog bands are... well, let me just say it this way. What stands out to me about you guys as a prog band, and with the bluesy elements and all the other things that you bring to it, is the amount of melody that you put into the songs. And
Well, I'm glad you
what
noticed
I'm
that.
curious about is where that comes from and your approach to that.
That's a great question. And, someone the other day asked me, how would you define your band? And, obviously the twin lead guitar thing comes to mind, but melody is the key thing. And I think that is being British or European. I think that, the original stamp of the band was the twin lead guitars, which obviously you're going to be playing melodic lines. But also around 72, we had a big record, Argus, and we stumbled on the harmony style of singing as well. So most of the lead lines on the vocals were harmonized.
Right.
And that instantly gives a song a melodic feel. And that's also still a big part of the band. So you've got vocal harmonizing, guitar harmonizing, and sometimes the bass is joining in with a 3-part or a contrapuntal line that's running against the guitar. So
that's some interesting chordal harmonies as well. So
you're doing an awful lot with just that tried and tested 2-guitar bass and drum format.
Right.
You know, it's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of textures there. When you go to the clean sounds and things, you work some effects in, some of the Leslie speakers we were talking about a little bit earlier, some of those type of effects and things that really, I think, set you apart from a lot of the other prog stuff that's out there.
That's what we hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we're trying for.
Absolutely.
You know,
quite frankly, that's sometimes quite difficult to get on stage.
Really
because
difficult.
The songs have so many different textures and sounds.
Yes.
And to produce that on stage is...
We're like ballet dancers on our pedals.
Stepping on pedals and volume down, up, down.
Acoustic guitar sounds, synthy sounds, chorus effects. It's crazy, but But if we can, it's very satisfying when you can pull it off, and you've got all these mood changes and swings in the music. Keeps it really interesting especially for the guitar players.
You remember a year ago when we played Auburn Hills and Jim McCarty came to see us.
Yes.
And after the gig, he said, "How the can you remember all that stuff you play?" He was completely blown away.
Yeah, because of their arrangements.
Yeah.
Their actual compositions and arrangements with some extemporizing sections allowed, here and there, and that's why we need to be a touring band. You just can't, with this band, you can't just say, "Oh, I don't think we'll play for 6 months, but let's go and do a one-off show." That would be a nightmare for us because we build our shtick up on a tour. We're like, like being a band and doing it every night. We're remembering all those arrangements. It's a ton to remember.
Right.
For a lot of progressive rock bands, actually.
Sure. The other thing is that stands out is the use of dynamics that you guys have.
Thank you.
Dropping from intense sections to very quiet and really pretty, chordal sections and things. And again, where does that kind of thing factor into all of that?
Well, I think that we learned our lessons by opening up for bands that were doing that, and we could instantly see the impact when we opened for Yes, or we opened for The Who in particular, who, in my book, wrote the book of stadium rock playing. I could see instantly how that was working, and that song you mentioned, Blind Eye, it was our opening song every night. We would go on, and it has this staccato riff, and there's complete silence. And I remember we opened, we went to the Fillmore West, about 1970. We played a show there. We walked in, there was the smoke, and the haze was so thick you would get stoned just by walking in the building. And all the hippies were lying on the floor. They didn't know who we were. And we opened with that song, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, something just happened in the room. And that was where we first realized the effect and the impact of dynamics. And I think that if you can do that as a rock band, you've got it made. It's a great shtick.
Yeah, absolutely. But it requires a lot of listening, I think, to really pull that off and to make sure that it works. Something where you all have to be really conscious and the band has to work together on all that.
Working together is important. A lot of people say to me, how do you find, especially as a guitar player, you tend to perhaps maybe not listen as much because, guitar players are not noted for their restraint generally in a band. They're the ones riding along on the top there. But when you're playing with another...
That's not the case with us,
No,
Andy.
not with us, never with us. But you have to listen, as you just mentioned, you have to listen, and you have to know when to back up the other guy or give him the wings to fly on, And it's a great discipline, actually, for a guitar player to work with another guitar player.
Right.
I mean, back in the day in those, I remember seeing the Alan Toussaint band and, a lot of the Tamla bands, they often had 2 rhythm guitar players. And they were both working together and creating this incredible groove with just the rhythm guitars. Forget lead playing. And I started out as a rhythm guitar player. Actually, I wasn't allowed to play lead. It's just, you know, so I think that's one of the differences today, is that if you're a lead guitar player, you can buy these incredible instruments which we've just been looking at there in the warehouse, and they're all set up so perfectly. You can dive straight into playing lead guitar. Well, back in the day, you had to kind of serve your apprenticeship, and you would sit in the back there comping, you know. You're always saying that, right?
Yeah.
About the
Comping, yes, exactly.
yeah, you know, and then you know, then you would gravitate to it. Now you can do some lead lines, but not too many.
Right. Right. So speaking of guitars and gear, given the title of our show here and things, let's talk a little bit about the gear that you guys use. Bob, you're a Hartkey and a Music Man guy, correct?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Tell us about the connection there.
The Music Man connection actually came by accident because I never know how to pronounce it. Is it Lackland or Lakeland bass?
Lakeland.
Sorry, Lakeland, yeah. That I'd chosen, I went to Chicago, went to the warehouse, chose all the wood and everything, wonderful. And luckily it got stolen. In Berlin. No, not lucky, great instrument, but I was then sent this old Music Man Stingray that had belonged to a girl bass player from Nashville, and they'd been on tour in Germany. They couldn't afford to take the gear back, and this hire company gave it to them, and I bought it off them because it was amazing immediately. Just a lucky instrument, but I love it. And I think I call them a plank, but it's a very basic instrument that you can get anything out of that you want, really.
Right.
So that's my Music Man connection. Hartkey actually came a strange connection through what's it, Andy? Your someone used to
Oh, my neighbour's husband. Right?
Yeah, my neighbour's husband. Yeah, something like that.
He ended up working for Hartkey.
Yeah, and so he had, anyway, but Hartkey gear nowadays is really roadworthy. It didn't used to be. It is now, and it's. I like to not when I'm on stage. I don't like to swamp the stage with bass sound because I don't think it's necessary nowadays. It used to be, it isn't anymore, it's not relevant. You've got PA for that works really well.
Right.
So I like to tuck in and not mess up everybody else's gig, and Hartkey's great from that. It's really good. So,
Sure. Absolutely.
You know, so
Absolutely.
that's my story there.
Right. And Muddy, you're a Les Paul guy, it looks like to me.
Yeah, I've always been a Gibson guy. I think the first guitar I got back in the day was a gold top copy Ibanez. And I've been using Gibsons ever since. Every now and then I get a Strat or a Tele, but I don't really feel that comfortable with them. I can get the sounds that I want from a Gibson.
Right. And are you finding your tones are coming from pedals, or are you driving them from your amplifiers?
It depends on the amplifier. If it's a Fender, like I'm using on this tour, I'm using 2 Fender Bassman reissues. So I run them clean and I take the overdrive from a pedal. But if I got a nice old vintage style Marshall, I'll crank up the amp and get the basic, distortion from there.
Right.
But you can get a lot of different sounds from a Les Paul. You just using the volume and tone knobs and different pickup positions.
Right. It's a surprisingly versatile guitar. Right. And Andy, of course, you're well known as a Flying V player. What was the attraction for the Flying V originally?
Well, I used to make guitars, and the first guitar I made in the band was a Les Paul style, and but I made a Strat as well. So I got to learn how guitars function and different woods and the qualities of a Les Paul as opposed to a Strat. And then I got an SG Special, and I used that on the first 2 albums. And then we were buying some new backline gear, orange gear. They just came out, these German amplifiers, and they were being marketed by a guy called Cliff Cooper in Denmark Street. And so we were one of the first bands that bought an entire backline. So I went down the store, and I'm trying out these fantastic 100-watt amplifiers because we were going to take them to America. We were going to blow the Yanks' minds with this English. Well, actually, we didn't realize that it's German. The gear was German. And we were going to ship all this stuff out. So I'm checking out all these different amplifiers and speaker combinations. And they had in the store 2 Flying Vs. Well, one was hanging up on the wall. And that was a bit of a dog. That was my guitar. And I picked one off the one and I plugged it into this orange amp. And I was immediately struck by it. A, it looked cool. I'd only ever seen photographs of Albert King playing one. And B, it actually sounded not dissimilar from the SG, but a bit more vibrant, which was unusual for a Gibson because Gibsons, they're usually fairly mellow sounding guitar woody, you know. So I thought, this is kind of cool rock guitar. And I bought it on the spot. But they had 2 of them there that had been in packing cases for 6 years. No one was, they'd come over from America and they were still in the cardboard. And I bought that thing for £300, took it home in my little bed set in London, put it on the end of the bed there and sat there and I can't believe I own this thing. And that became my instrument.
Right,
I fell in love with it. And then, of course, I realized the stagecraft aspect of it. You know, I was a skinny guy. I could wrap myself around the guitar and go up to the front of the crowd, and it had this visual impact. It almost became like a kind of a trademark of the band. So it stood me in great stead, I have to say, yeah.
Right.
You can read all about it right in this
Right in the book,
right?
yes. Product placement. Exactly.
Relentless, ruthless plug.
Yeah, right. So do the 2 of you work to craft your tones to complement each other, or did you come together with tones already developed, and how does that work?
That's important. I mean, right from the get-go with the band, we would try to, you know, with Ted Turner was the original guitar player, and then Laurie Wisefield, and if one of us was playing a Strat, I mean, I'll occasionally pick up a Fender Strat, or I have a nice old Telecaster. It used to belong to Roy Buchanan. But I mean, you know, if I pick up you know, a Gibson, then it would be important that the other guitar would be a Stratocaster, because it's a really great blend when you get that. Or in the case of Muddy and I, you know, the Gibson is thinner sound, a little bit more sustaining maybe, and then the thicker sound of the Les Paul. Those work well together. I mean, like last night actually, we were playing a club, and the gentleman was mixing the sound, had a couple of condenser mics on my rig, and he said it really complemented the SM50. So miking is very important with cabinets, and because you want some differentiation. I think that's where a lot of 2 guitar bands can often fall down, is that they don't have a differentiation. It starts to get very mushy and indiscernible. So, you know, we're very mindful of that, you know. And I've also got on my custom-made Vita, I have a piezo pickup built into the bridge. So I can bring in, like, very percussive acoustic sounds, which is really useful if I'm backing Muddy up on you. He might be wailing on a real thick, juicy Les Paul sound, and I've got this kind of twangy, acoustic-y thing going on. So you can hear the 2 parts quite separately, you know, and vice versa. You know, it's really important, that, isn't it? When we 2 guitar players.
Right. Yeah. It seems, listening to you guys, it's very clear who's playing what, and I think part of that is also the amount of gain you use. You're not overgaining.
We're not overgaining.
The tones.
No, you know, we're mostly. I mean, for myself, you were asking about with Muddy. I mean, I use the amps. They're never on more than like 3. I use Fenders at the moment, Prosonics on the road, old vintage Prosonics, but I'll use pedals, which I never used to in the old days, of course, but I'm judicious with it. You know, I don't want to, because the more that you add into the tone path, it's going to give you a full sense of sustain and all the rest of it. But you really want the speakers to be working in the amp. You want the actual power amp to be working, and then the rest of it is just an enhancement of that. You know, everyone's looking for that transparent overdrive. And you can certainly find it with the myriad of pedals that are out there. But, you know, the thing is, that the dictum is basically less is more. Less is more.
Right. Bob, you mentioned tucking your sound into the volume-wise and things on stage. Do you approach that tonally as well to allow space for the guitar?
I mean more tonally.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of bass players still overcook the bottom end, and there's the rumble and it's all woof, and let the guy out the front do that.
He can do that.
Yeah, I mean, you know these big reflex cabinets nowadays that roll the sound and make the audience feel sick. You know, it's not necessary. So no, I just try and keep. I want to play a note. So you want middle. I don't mean honky mid, but so you know, sort of lower mid, kind of with a bit of warmth and a nice crisp top on it, and then that should complement the guitar sounds. I mean, I think we get a good sound, the 2 of us together. Actually.
We do. Yeah. We work a lot.
Sorry, I was saying that not. And he's really going mad buddy, but we're next to each other, so our sounds are there next to each other, and I think they work. Yeah, I don't think I'm taking your.
And then sometimes Bob he's a finger player primarily, but he'll bring in a pick as well, especially if he's working if we're working a couple of lead lines, and he's going to come in and join us on a bass line, that he'll grab a pick quickly, and makes the guitar poke through, the bass guitar poke through. So all these little tricks, it's all finessing until you can, you create this vast sound, really.
Right.
We're just using the two guitars, bass and drums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone can hear everything and it all comes together. And creates a beautiful
We're
texture.
mad on that. In fact, like I was mentioning, when we first came over to the States, that the Orange gear was very clean sounding. I mean, Fenders were clean, but these things were powerful. And we were playing stadiums. Often we wouldn't mic the guitars up. And we even went a step further and put JBL K120 speakers in the cabinet. So I used to end up with two 200-watt amps, and but it was clean. It was clean,
Right.
and so that
And loud.
And
clean
loud.
and loud. Couldn't do it now, but we're always looking for clarity. And we just started using, not so long ago, using the Perspex screens as well, because you don't want to kill an audience in a theatre. You want overdriven sounds, but and that helps with separation on stage. Little tricks like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of bands are doing that now.
PA guys.
Yeah,
PA
they
guys
love it.
They
They love
absolutely
it.
love it.
Yeah.
If we screen the amps off, and we can create some isolation on stage, and all of that helps our sound as well.
And then you can also crank the amp up a bit more if
Yeah.
you want to.
Yeah.
It's not killing anything.
Still maintain that clarity, right? Absolutely. Well, that is a lot of great advice that you guys have
Thank you.
dispensed here today. We appreciate it, and thanks so much for coming in. What's next? What do we have new music coming, or what's on the horizon?
Well, there's always a possibility of new music. It's like, are you going to pay us? You
big
got
question.
to pay. No. I mean, it's hard to produce. Just on a business side, and this is perhaps for younger bands. The budgets are getting squeezed with production. So we always have new songs and new ideas, and we will produce another album.
Mm-hmm.
But finances, even for a band like us, that's a gigging entity, it's got to be right,
Mm-hmm.
And we also want the distribution right. We want the production values right. So we wait till those situations are right, and then sure music will come. So in the meantime, we've done a
You
few
got lots going
side
on.
projects.
Yeah, lots going on and lots of touring.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for taking time to sit down with us today. We appreciate you being
thank
here.
you.
It's going to be a great show tonight at C2G here in Fort Wayne, and then the rest of the tour as well. So,
Great.
very
Well,
much.
thanks for the opportunity. We've thoroughly enjoyed it.
absolutely our pleasure. Great to see you, Andy.
Good one. Thank
Buddy.
you.
Bob.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me for Sweetwater's Guitars and Gear. I'm Mitch Gallagher.